The ambition was to be the billionaire. Didn't know how to.
Billionaire?
Yeah, not a millionaire.
That's good.
Just a billionaire. At Microsoft, I joined at job level 60 and my CTC was 33.5 LPA. But don't divide it by 12, please.
So how much of it was your base pay?
Base pay was, my first thought was, okay, I'll become an artist. I don't want any degree at all. Then they were more concerned that, hey, artists don't really earn. So how will you survive? And if I can be brutally honest, most of that degree can be concisely put into 6 months or less than that. 4 years is not needed really.
So whatever you learned in 4 years can be done in 6 months?
Yeah, less than 6 months. I looked into the stories of Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, and the common denominator was all of them could code, and that's how they made these magnificent companies. So I wanted to do that, and for that I started learning coding. I still feel that somewhere the $1 billion are kept and it's waiting for me. I just have to figure out the path to
how to get there.
That
Stash is there.
Yeah, and it's in my name. Nobody else will pick it.
What kind of resources should they go to when they're looking to upskill themselves in the UI UX field as beginners?
UX design just makes sense because my headspace is like that right now. There were a few more reasons, but the one that stood out the most was UX design is the highest paying field in all these design sectors.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dhairya Decodes podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be joined by an extremely interesting working professional who has not just been able to establish himself as a UI UX designer at one of the leading tech companies in the world, but he's had a very interesting career trajectory himself because having done a bachelor's degree in product design from Symbiosis Institute, which is a very renowned college in Pune, to actually going on to freelance as a UI UX designer and as a product designer, to then moving on to Infosys. And then there was a small stint that he had. He also actually went on to start his own venture in the same space. So he has also been an entrepreneur. And then he moved to Microsoft as a product designer in their AI vertical, right? Which was very, very interesting. And currently he is working at Google as a UX designer, UI UX designer. And he is actually going to be decoding for you what does it really take to be able to build a career as a UI UX designer or a product designer in 2024. He's going to decode for you what kind of salaries can you expect in the job market. What does it really take in terms of a skill set, mindset, value adds to be able to break it through the competitive job market. And we're going to deep dive into his early career trajectory, the kind of family background he comes from, and what else does Vivek Dubey have in store, because he also creates content. He has close to about 35,000 followers on Instagram. He is also working on his own YouTube podcast, which you should check out. I'm also a guest on one of his episodes and I can keep going on. But I must say that he has definitely carved a path which is very unconventional, and he has been able to do something in the field of UI UX design, which a lot of people aspire to do. So without any further ado, let's get started with today's episode. And I'd like to welcome Vivek to the Dhairya Decodes podcast.
Thank you so much, Dhairya. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for that fabulous introduction. I have never heard so much about myself.
A lot of people tell me that because I try and ensure that I don't miss out on anything, right? Because people do so much, right? And you were telling me I've done so much. I feel like there's so much that you've done actually for yourself, and it's so great to see that you've done it again in a career niche, which is not so common, right? Now, obviously, in the past 2 years, UI, UX, product design have again been hot buzzwords. People know about it and people are aspiring to build a career in it. But still, it is not still there, right? So we need more people like you to be like the torch bearers and probably help people understand what it really takes to build a career in these fields, right?
Yeah.
I think on that note, Vivek, I want to start with knowing a little bit about your childhood. I'd like to understand more about what kind of a family background do you come from? What kind of an environment were you brought up in? And what did you see most people around you pursuing in terms of career paths? And did it have any early impressions on you when you look back now and if you reflect on the career choices you have made, if at all?
Right. Pretty deep questions, taking me right back to my childhood. So if we start from the very beginning, I was born in Bihar, Muzaffarpur. It's a town in Bihar.
Nice.
Yeah, and there I was there for, I think, 2-3 years. After that, we shifted to Maharashtra.
Okay.
There's a town near Pune. That's where we shifted. My father is a railway contractor.
Okay.
And that place near Pune, it's called Bhusawal. It was a great place.
I know of Bhusawal.
You know Bhusawal?
Yeah, I know
Very
Bhusawal.
few people do, so I don't take the effort and I introduce myself from Pune. But yeah, so my father is a railway contractor and that place was the best place to do that sort of business.
Yeah.
So people around me, my father is in the business background. My cousins are doing business of some sort. One of my cousins joined the IT sector and he was kind of the first in this generation. So I always was conflicted with the thought of doing the business or joining the IT sector with a stable salary of things like that.
Yeah.
I come from a joint family. I have a twin sister.
You have a twin sister?
Yeah, I'm a minute elder and she calls me Bhaiya, which is very good. And I have
I'm going to
an
tell my sister. She's like, 2 साल ही तो बड़ी है, दीदी क्या बुलाना?
Yeah.
Wow. ये देखो. And now that she doesn't even see all of my episodes, so it's not even going to make any
Show her
sense.
this section.
I will.
I'm so happy that वो मुझे भैया बुलाती है because घर वालों ने बोला बोलने के लिए.
Wonderful, yaar. Great.
I have an elder brother who's in US and he's also working in the IT sector. So
Talented family. Yeah, that I can say. That I can say. Great. So you saw, so what I understand is you saw people doing something of their own and business around you.
yeah.
How did this shift happen? How did you think of taking up a corporate job? How did you think of doing something in UI, UX design and product design for all you know? Because the conditioning and the people around you should have molded you to thinking that I should do something of my own, which I'm not saying is the way to go. But why did the shift happen and how did it happen?
Right. So at an early age, the ambition was to be the billionaire. Just didn't know how to.
Billionaire.
Yeah. Not a millionaire.
That's good.
Just a billionaire.
Yeah.
But didn't know how to pursue that, like what path to take, what to do. I just knew the end goal was to be a billionaire.
Yeah.
And I had always imagined, like looking at all these glorified stories of Bill Gates, Zuckerberg and whatnot, that the right way to do this is to be a dropout and then do something. Because if you're a dropout, of course you would be successful.
Then you're cool.
Yeah.
And then you're successful.
Yeah. So the first step is to be a dropout.
He's thinking right there, that 18-year-old in his mind, I'm going to drop out. For context, behind the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So the first step was to be a dropout and then figure out rest of the things to be a billionaire.
So you were sure you'll drop out?
Yeah, I was 100% sure. I had told my family too that I'll drop out at some time and then I'll start a business which will take off in the first year.
Who decided you will do the bachelor's, degree in product design at Symbiosis?
Interesting story. So this was the time of recent time after the 3 Idiots happened and people were very worried that, hey, I don't want to send my kid into engineering. I really want him or her to pursue something in the creative side if they are creative. And I was an artist at that time. Like I used to draw, sketch, paint, and I used to have drawing exhibitions at the district level and people used to come for those exhibitions. So I had showed some trait of creativity by that time and people were concerned that I should not go into engineering. Otherwise, the 3 Idiots movie would become the reality of Bunny Manenge types.
Nice.
So they wanted me to do something that would match my creativity level.
Yeah.
And when I got that nudge and push, my first thought was, okay, I'll become an artist. I don't want any degree at all.
Okay.
Then they were more concerned that, hey, artists don't really earn. So how will you survive? And after that, my cousin brother, he did some research and he came up with few of the options in the creative fields that can actually get you salary and get you jobs.
Yeah.
And at that time, that was the first time I heard about the design sector. And there we were exploring things and the most prominent field at that time that was in discussion was the industrial design and very specific, the automobile design.
Automobile design, yeah.
And that's why I thought that given my creative part and wanting to do something, probably this can be one variation on one option for me. And then we did a sort of research, what to do, what are the colleges, the top colleges. Of course, NID was at the first stop. Then there were IIT Bombay and few other things. So I was sure at the time that if not engineering, this is what I'm going to do because I'm creative. I have to. And then I applied for all these colleges. And
what sort of entrance exams did you give to get into any of these colleges to pursue a design degree?
So they don't have any common entrance exam. They have entrance exam.
Isn't, right?
Yeah, they have each specific exam for their own institutions. So for NID, you give one entrance exam. IIT Bombay ke liye, you have UCED.
Okay.
And for Symbiosis at that time, SET, it was called. I don't know what it is called today. But we had specific entrance exams for each of the colleges and institutions.
Okay.
So I gave all of them, got rejected from all of them.
Okay.
Symbiosis kind of seemed the last option, but I had to give that exam.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't going anywhere else. So did the Symbiosis exam, cleared the SET, which is kind of an aptitude test of some sort. And after that, they do the studio round in which you go to the college, interact with the professors, show your work, show your portfolio.
You interact with the professors?
Yeah, it's kind of an interview of some sort. That's a part 2 of the exam. Like if you have cleared the aptitude test,
correct,
then you go for the studio test where you show your portfolio, you have a conversation, sort of an interview. And based on the combination of these 2 things, your final result is declared.
And did you have a portfolio?
At the time, I wasn't sure what portfolio is, and I Googled it, and the first thing that I saw was it's a collection of your work.
Correct.
So I took all my sketches. Hey, I made the portrait of Taylor Swift.
And where did you put all of these sketches there?
I just took it in a file. I just put everything.
Physically you took it.
Yeah.
So you had an actual real-time portfolio.
Yeah.
To show them.
And everything was just sketches and portraits of celebs and what this and what not.
But tell me one thing. Do sketches of, while it's obviously, it shows a flair of creativity and understanding of maybe design and everything else.
Yeah.
Just showing your work or your art, does that help in these design colleges?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of it.
I was wondering.
But it did not. Although they are looking for any signs of creativity that you might have, and then they ask you questions and give you small tasks or things that will help them explore further of where you are oriented and how you want to go ahead. Yeah. But showing just your simple drawings and sketches are not the right way to do it.
Work. Yeah.
But I went with it, and I did all sort of interview questions. I answered it, whatever they asked me to, I drew, and everything happened. And after that, I just waited for results, very sure that I have gotten in because I'm creative. And after, I think around a month, I got the results. It was waitlisted 47. So I had to wait. If 46 people say no to SID, then I'll be in SID. So SID is Symbiosis Institute of Design.
Institute of Design, yeah.
So I was waitlisted 47. So surprisingly or fortunately, 46 people said no or chose any other college. And then finally I got the letter, hey, you have been chosen, you are the selected person, and now you can join SID. So that's how I got into the college.
Okay.
And after getting into college, the plan was still the same. I was just deciding in which year should I take the drop. Should it be first year, too soon? Let's live a life. Then probably second year or third year, I'll drop out in third year probably. So that is the plan. And why?
It's a 3-year degree, no? But
it's 4 year. 4-year degree. Yeah. And while I was doing it, I was also helping my father in his business. There was a time when a lot of transition was happening from the manual ways of doing that business, and it was coming to digital part. So he was struggling a bit. So I was trying to help him out in that area too. So some of my time was always dedicated there.
Okay.
And then I started learning what design is. And if I can be brutally honest, most of that degree can be concisely put into 6 months or less than that. 4 years is not needed really. But it's good that it's 4 years.
So whatever you learned in 4 years can be done in 6 months?
Yeah, less than 6 months.
Okay. How was college like for you? How were the 4 years at SID for you? Did it shape you into...
It is the core of who I am today.
Yeah.
Every year...
I hope in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. So 4 years at SID. Definitely each of the year has played an important role on making who I am. And if we go in the sequence, when I joined SID in my first year, I was that guy with a bit of a accent coming from Bihar. Of course, I had my schooling in Pune, not really Pune, Bhusawal, and 2 years in Delhi. But I still had some part of that accent in whatever I used to speak, the words that I used, and the pronunciation that I had. It used to reflect.
Did it ever bother you though?
Not before that, but when I came to SID and when I spoke like in front of 100, 150 or 200 students, and then people used to point it out, "Acha, Bihar se ho," and then I used to get all conscious, ki, "Oh, what did I say?" or the way I said it.
Yeah.
And it was still okay, people would be judging a bit, but I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
The real problem for me was when I tried to make a girlfriend.
Oh, see, this is where the problem comes, guys.
Yeah, and
see, that's what I say. Career.
It's a good problem to have. I'll tell this to everybody. You should go through this problem because it helps you in developing your personality.
Girls, anyways, help you in multiple ways. Just adding on to what he says.
And preparing for that opportunity already elevates you to that extent. So yeah.
See, he amped up and leveled up for a girl.
Yeah.
See,
so
great inspiration to the youth. Thank you.
It is. So the ways that I handled it is, first I was too shy, and then I really didn't want to speak anywhere because I have this accent. I'm not fluent with the pronunciations and other things. But then I got the Netflix subscription. So got a Netflix subscription. My English was better. I understood.
You started watching more movies and what series?
Lucifer specifically. Sometimes the words that I started using, people were not aware of.
Yeah.
And then I had the upper
Your
hand.
vocabulary increased.
Yeah. It was like the revenge story of plot ki, hey, I have come back smarter than you now. So when that happened, after that, I made a lot of friends.
Did it also instill a lot more confidence in you in general, in what you could do and maybe just being able to get more opportunities and access?
It did. I felt like a transformed person entirely. I was seeking for more opportunities to interact with people. I could speak more, and I was reaching out to folks.
But how long did it take you to go from being shy to confident?
4 or 5 months of Netflix. That's all it took. Yeah.
Okay.
After that, I had many friends
and girlfriends.
He'll
not mention that now.
Yeah. Now, okay, let's focus on the other good parts. So after that, once this distraction was over, I had worked on this part of my personality. I came back to the grand plan, which was dropping out as soon as I can.
So that was still on?
Yeah, that was on. This is just a deviation for some time, romanticizing life, living life, and being that cool kid. After that, I was back on the track for my grand plan. And I looked into the stories of Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, and the common denominator was all of them could code. And that's how they made these magnificent companies. So I wanted to do that. And for that, I started learning coding on my own. I started with HTML, CSS. And the moment I understood what HTML, CSS is and how to make like the structure of pages, I felt like a very proficient coder. I put it on my LinkedIn and everywhere that, hey, I'm a programmer now. I can do freelance work and whatnot. And I started making random websites for myself where I used to do all sorts of things on HTML, CSS. My domain at that moment was industrial design. I was supposed to go for automobile designing.
Okay.
But coding I was pursuing because I was liking it and I thought it was part of the grand plan that I have. So I got into coding, HTML, CSS. I flaunted my skills as much as I could, and rarely, but whenever I came across any programmer or developer, they used to ask me, so which languages do you know? And I used to proudly say HTML. And then I got to know that I'm not a programmer. HTML is not a programming language.
Yeah.
Then I went back to the whiteboard to look into my grand plan. Something is missing.
I love the way he's so consistent and passionate about his grand plan.
It was always there. I felt like I was born for it. I still feel that
which is great, right?
Yeah.
It should be. It should be. There should be a grand plan.
I still feel that somewhere the $1 billion are kept and it's waiting for me. I just have to figure out the path to
how to get there.
That
Stash is there.
Yeah, and it's in my name. Nobody else will pick it. I just have to find that path. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I'm sure you'll definitely get there soon.
Thank you. So after that, when I got the reality check that HTML is not a programming language. Then I deep dived into multiple things. I started learning PHP, JavaScript, Python, and whatnot. And then I actually started developing programs, websites, and things in the larger sense.
Did you not find it challenging at any point to be doing coding coming from a completely non-tech background in a design school?
It was very challenging in the beginning, and there were a lot of times when I had given up. So I used to give up every month.
I'm sure.
And then every other month I was like, but if this is not happening, then how will I get to that $1 billion?
Look at him. So, ये $1 billion I'd never thought of. इसलिए I was like 15 दिन में नहीं करनी coding. Right? And then 15 दिन बाद और बिल्कुल ही नहीं करनी coding.
So I used to give up a lot, but then I used to come back to it. कि ठीक है, let's give it one more shot. Let's give it one more shot. And by the end of second year, I was fluent in Python and plain JavaScript, not React.js or anything. But I was doing wonders there. I was not just coding websites, but I had started Arduino, Raspberry Pi, electronics and whatnot.
So you were doing software, hardware integration also?
Yeah, I started all of it. Like
Lovely.
If I am diving into it,
then you'll go all in, obviously.
Yeah. So I did all those sorts of things. Second year was when I was truly into programming. And that's when the shift really happened that I don't want to be an industrial designer anymore. And when I'm already thinking about digital apps, websites and things, it makes sense to probably move into that direction. And UX design is where the design meets the tech industry. And that's
you
where
knew about the industry already? UI UX as an industry and a field?
In the first year, I had come to know about what all options are there. Like I had come with only one goal that I have to be an industrial designer or automobile designer from the academic point. But when I interacted with folks in the first year, I got to know. First year is foundation year, so everybody's together.
Yeah.
So at that time, I got to know that there are so many other disciplines, and I can at least explore or understand what these disciplines are. And whenever there was a talk of placements, UX used to score the highest packages. So there was one incentive for everybody. Like most of the folks who wanted to get into UX.
But in your college degree, during those 4 years, were there any particular subjects or extra credits or any kind of competitions or any access given to the students specifically to be able to pursue a career path as a UI UX designer at your college?
There was no such incentive that would bring them from any other domain to UX design. But if
no subjects also?
There was a discipline of UX design, like you could get into it. There's an option to be a UX designer. How I chose to be an industrial designer. People could opt for graphic designing, UX design or something else. But the field was being celebrated as UX design, but in that college, that specific stream did not have any lucrative incentive that people would want to go there. So it was kind of like a normal thing. It doesn't matter in which stream you are.
But so you were not essentially getting skilled or getting educated about UI UX from college at least?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Whatever I learned about UX in my 4 years was from YouTube videos, nowhere else.
Do you mind sharing like a few resources for freshers and students who would want to get started and kickstart their journey in UI UX just like you? Let's say they're clueless, they don't know. Their college is not equipping them with this. And today, as you know, careers are fluid, right? Somebody who is, let's say, doing BBA could also learn UI UX design.
Definitely.
So would you like to just share a few resources that you found extremely helpful at that stage when you were trying to learn?
Yeah. So the thing is, the resources that I used to refer to at that time, that's pretty outdated now. But there's a new list and I can share that with you and you can put it in the description, the link of those things.
That'll be great.
Yeah,
sure.
We can definitely do that.
Sure.
Right. So
what we'll do is you give me a list of the resources that you think are very relevant for people. It could be like a playbook, it could be a YouTube channel, it could be a podcast, could be a few courses, but we'll probably link them in the description so that these guys can know what kind of resources should they go to when they're looking to upskill themselves in the UI UX field as beginners, or when they don't belong to the field and they're not getting an academic degree per se in it. Yeah.
Right. We can do that. We'll put it in the description.
Perfect. So with that, Vivek, why don't you tell me a little bit about now that you realized you want to get into the UI UX space? You were also, like you said, reaching out to people and saying, I'm happy to build websites for you and do freelance work for you.
Yeah.
Were these freelancing gigs being done while you were in college?
I tried to get a lot of freelancing gigs in college, but because I wasn't the best developer out there at the moment, because when I was looking for freelance gigs, at that time I only knew HTML. And when I actually started programming with Python, PHP, JavaScript, at that time I was too indulged into learning and I didn't want to take up any projects other than what I want to build. So at that time I did not go for freelancing. And before that, whatever engagement I had with the freelancing things, they were very on and off kind. Like I used to get the requirement, I used to try something on HTML, they were looking for something else, so it never worked out before that.
Got it.
So in my 4 years, I did not do any other freelance work.
And did your friends, family, anybody ever discourage you when you were choosing to get into UI UX after taking up a, industrial design degree per se?
No, in fact, they were very curious in what really caught my attention in getting into UX, because I seemed pretty adamant about dropping out. And if not dropping out, then the backup was automobile designing. And now I'm changing the backup.
Out of both of them, you're just going to a different tangent now.
Yeah, UX design. Why so?
Yeah.
So I told them about a lot of reasons that I recently upskilled myself. Coding is there. UX design just makes sense because my headspace is like that right now. And there were a few more reasons, but the one that stood out the most was UX design is the highest paying field in all these design sectors.
Yeah.
So that was pretty convincing.
And then the $1 billion stash is waiting for him. Yeah. Okay. We're never going to forget that. That's the plot. With
Right.
that, Vivek, it also brings me to think about this thing that whenever anybody is looking at a career path, money is obviously important, but at the same time, you have to have the skill set to be able to make that kind of money, right?
Right.
You have a software engineer working at Infosys, also you have a software engineer working at Microsoft as well.
Yeah.
Both of them are software engineers, but they get paid very differently.
Very different.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's certainly something that the guy at Microsoft or a Google or Netflix is doing that the Infosys guy doesn't know.
Yeah.
For a fresher who is aspirational, who wants to break into the UI UX field, I have two questions, two parts. A, can you break down what UI UX design is? I know it's a very basic question, but a lot of people I think still don't even know what UI UX design is.
Sure.
And even the difference between UI and UX.
Yeah.
People think it's the same, right?
Right.
And then why don't you move on to also telling me what do you think are like the top 3 skills a fresher must build on, irrespective of whether they want to join a startup, freelance, or join a top tech company in the UI UX space that they must start working on today?
Yeah, good questions. Let's start with the basic one.
Sure.
What is UX design? UX design is that field where the designers are supposed to think about why a product is being made and why is it being made that way. That's like the core of it. You think about that, you discover a few facts, you support your statements, and then you give that narrative and help the developers build it. So you are the thinker. Like, of course, someone came up with an idea that this app, this website, or this software should exist. But how should it exist? With what features, what options, and why it should look a certain way. All these decisions are made by UX designers, UI and UX designers. In India, UI and UX are pretty closely related, but at a lot of places, these are considered as two different roles. UI designer is a person who looks closely at the component level, like the buttons, should they be blue? Which kind of button should be used on this page? UX designers handles questions at an Uber level, like, do we really need a page here? Do we need 3 pages to complete this process? And how important is this process? So all these questions, when we take a step back and think at that level of the app, that is dealt by UX designers. And when we look at the component level of the styling, designing, color, palette, and whatnot, that is dealt by UI designers. But in India, most of the time, these roles are
kind of intertwined. And UI is your user interface, UX is your
user experience design.
Could you put what you just said into an example of any app, or let's say if I take Uber, for instance?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Uber is an app. And when I'm looking at the app, what is a UI designer doing versus a UX designer?
Great. The best way to put it is whenever you open an app and then you want to book something to reach somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? Now, there are multiple ways to do this, allowing you to book a vehicle and then reaching someplace.
Correct.
Now, should I prompt you to select the vehicle first or should I ask you the destination first? And if you have chosen the destination first, which vehicle should be shown? Do I need to show how far is it, or do I need to show how long will it take for you to reach there, or is the price more important? So there are so many data points that you can ask or give to the user.
Correct.
But which one to give them, when to give them,
even the priority, like which one should be shown first, order.
Right. The sequence, the positioning, how much value do you give it, what is the font size of it, like is the price that important that you make it big and the time is not that important?
It's that level of precision?
Yeah, so every pixel on the screen is thought of, why is it there, and if it is there, with what treatment is it there? Like, is it that important that you're making a bold font choice here, or is it very trivial so you're using very small or regular font? All these questions are there.
Yeah.
So whenever we talk about the attention, the feature sequence and all these sorts of things, it is more in the forte of a UX designer.
Okay.
Because they are narrating the entire experience for the user.
Right.
When we have certain set of a layout that, hey, this is decided that first the user will choose the destination, then we will show them number of vehicles, like these options are available: Uber, cab, auto, ride, whatnot. And I also know from my research that people would prefer pricing more, and they don't want to know the kilometers, they want to know the time they will take to reach there.
Correct.
So all these points I have sorted and frozen in a layout.
Yeah.
But now how to make that UI look beautiful, or that layout look beautiful, that is the job of a UI designer. Like, they understand that these data points need to be showed. And this is the sequence.
The presentation aspect of it, or the visual aesthetic?
Yeah, the visual part of it. What colors to choose, how to place the buttons. Will the buttons have corner radius?
Yeah.
Which colors to use where, foreground, background, card layout, or anything that will aesthetically help the app. That is the part of UI design. And the thinking before that is what UX design is.
This is extremely interesting. I had no idea at this level that that's how it is. I had some idea, but thanks for actually explaining that. That's super insightful. With that, I'd also asked you, so now that you've explained UI, UX, we've also taken an example for them to make it easier in terms of an analogy. What are the top 3 skills that a UI, UX designer must have to get hired in today's day and age?
That's a great question that a lot of folks confuse. Even people who are in the design field, they confuse answering this.
Okay.
They think that while mentioning skill, Figma needs to be mentioned. Figma is a tool.
It's a tool, yeah.
It's a tool. It's not a skill. Tools will change. Like, not long back, people were mad about Adobe XD. Like, it's the crazy thing. And if you're not learning Adobe XD, you're not a UX designer. Right now, it's all about Figma.
Correct. Tomorrow it'll be something else.
Could be. So it's just a tool. But skill-wise, what you really need to understand is your first skill should be understanding the user. Call it whatever name or terminology that you want. Some people call it just plain user research. Some introduce empathy into it, user empathy, and some sort of create an entire domain of research on it. But the core is that you need to understand user and observe things, get that important insight or data that will help you shape your design. So that's the first and most important part, understanding the user. So the second part is that's a problem that a lot of freshers are facing. They are not very sure and they don't look into it. That's the business aspect of thing. They think that if you understand your user and make your UI as per the user needs, that's where the job is done. So if I take an example, it is something like there are menu options of some sort. And if there's a restaurant that provides foods, beverages, something else, and everything seems to be on the sibling level. Like, if I have to create a menu, I'll put food, beverages, and other things at the same level. That is what the basics of UX principles will tell us. That is what users might tell us. But if we put the business dimension in it, we know that on this store, this thing sells more. This specific dish sells the most. And probably other things are about 2% or less than that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really make sense to have a food menu with a food drop down where people can find this exact thing what they have always been looking for, and keeping it hidden inside other menu things. So you keep it outside. You keep it one level above the menu itself, directly there.
Okay.
All these options
just as an item.
Yeah. and it doesn't need to be part of a food menu. It can be somewhere else catching your eye directly, and 80% of the times people will click directly on that. They don't need to explore and find things. So all these insights, they will not come from users directly, but more from the business point of view. And that's where a lot of new designers miss out. So the first is user research, second is understanding the business, and third is actually ideating and brainstorming things. So what happens is, even if people are aware of the user research and they are very fluent with the business understanding and the business needs, they think that probably this makes sense and this layout will make sense for this problem and this is the solution. So whatever their first idea is, they make it and they are done with it. And that's not how it's supposed to be. Like, as a designer, you will have your own biases of what you have experienced so far, what you think is right. And to exclude those biases and to give a wide area for innovation, you'll have to explore more, ideate more, and brainstorm more. So for that, we are always encouraged to make 10, 15, 20 or 30 options. You might already know that for this problem, we have this one solution. But you still have to make 20, 30 options, and then you have to justify that this one makes sense. So this ideation and then justification, these skills are missing in a lot of folks in the UX design domain.
Yeah, so they're not probably technical skills per se, but I think it's, again, an amalgamation of just understanding the core of how a user will experience it at the end of the day, and that is what you're working towards, putting yourself probably in their shoes and understanding what they'll expect.
Right.
Also, I think it's also very subjective to the kind of app, product or platform you're working for, right? Because depending on the industry or the nature of the things, you, like you said, on the business side, at least think very differently.
Yeah.
Right? That's very interesting, I think, and super helpful. Thanks for listing down those 3 skills. We spoke about skills. With that, Vivek, like I said, you have to look at the monetary viability of a career option as well, right? And everybody wants to make good money, especially people who aspire to be billionaires. Now, like on a serious note, what is the earning potential for a fresher getting started with a UI UX job in India in 2024 today? Let's say they get started at a startup or a smaller company versus at a tech MNC. What kind of a salary range can they expect at a fresher position? And what is the scope when you go upwards?
Right. For freshers in startups, it's around 15, 16 lakhs.
Yeah.
Startups pay
Startups, 15, 16 lakhs.
They pay more. I'm talking about well-funded startups. Like, in today's day, everybody has a startup. So if you are not having a funded startup, then not talking about it. But which are well-funded startups, they pay around 15, 16 lakhs to freshers.
It's pretty good, as an amount.
Yeah, UX designers are earning well, at least in the funded space.
The stash is coming.
Yeah. And if I talk about the MNCs, like the big MNCs, like
Google, Microsoft, where he works.
FANG companies. So the entry-level UX designers, they earn around their base pay is 20 LPA, and on that they get stocks and other benefits.
Paisa hi paisa.
Paisa hi paisa. Okay.
Wonderful, amazing. Yeah. And what does it? So let's say you started a base salary of 20 lakhs at a company like a Google or a Microsoft or an Amazon as a UI UX designer.
Yeah.
What will your career trajectory look like if let's say you stick around for the next 10 years? Not just in terms of roles, what is the upper ceiling that you could go to as well?
For the next 10 years, if I stay as a UX designer?
Yeah.
Because this field is recently been evolving this much, different companies have different kinds of trajectories. And the common factor is, first you be a junior level designer, then you become a designer 2, then designer 3. Some call it designer 3.
You are a designer 2.
Right now I'm a designer 2 at Google.
Got it.
It's a mid-level thing.
Got it.
And then you go to either senior designer, and also UX designers are also called product designers in few of the companies.
Yeah, in some companies. I was going to ask you that. Is it interchangeable?
Yeah, it is. Product designer is the new fancy term.
That is being used for a UI UX designer.
Right.
But it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Same
thing.
Same thing. They're not different.
Not at all.
Okay.
Yeah. So you go to the designer 2 level, and then you become a senior designer, and then your roles shift towards management. Like until now you have been an IC, individual contributor, but then you go towards management.
You manage a team then?
Yeah, and then you get team to manage, and then you become principal, you become partner, director, depending on the type of company that you have. And then you can be VP and whatnot of design in that company.
And let's say someone, I don't know if you know, you must be knowing, but let's say a VP or a partner or a director in your department at Google, what kind of salary do they draw?
I have always wondered that. Like there are so many different figures online on Blind and Quora. And
no, but
whatnot.
haven't you ever asked them directly?
No, not yet.
You should.
But
what's your estimate? I'm sure you have an understanding of the industry, and having worked at Microsoft previously, now at Google, what could the limit? And I understand at their level, I'm assuming you don't draw like a salary, right?
Yeah. Variable is more.
You have variable is more, exactly.
Right.
But still.
See, it's a very valid and curious question, but...
is it in crores? Let me just simply come to the point.
Yeah, definitely. Like
definitely.
100%.
100%, right?
Yeah, I just don't know the number. How many crores? I don't know that.
Yeah, but it's in crores, for sure.
Definitely, for sure. So that's a ceiling like you can look up to. And about this guessing of things. It's so weird, especially in UX design field, that people who are 2 or 3 levels above me, or people who are just 1 level below me, they can't make a good guess about my salary, and I can't make the good guess about their salary. So it's very weird. So? Internet is flooded with different types of numbers, even on podcast, YouTube videos.
And they're mostly not legitimate, you think?
Yeah, especially the written numbers on internet, they are not the real thing. And I'll tell you the biggest confusion that there is, especially for freshers, when this company comes to the campus, let it be Microsoft, Google or anything, it has given a package of 2 crores or 1 crore to this fresher. So they actually do is divide by 12 और फिर हर महीने
हर महीने उतना ही आएगा. वो नहीं होता यार. That's your CTC.
And also CTC may be like part of it is your base pay. And the other part is stocks which would be paid over a period of 4 years.
Correct.
Or 5 years.
Not even in the next 1 or 2 years.
Yeah. Exactly. So it will get distributed like that. So when you do that reality check, the number comes way below that. And that's why there's a lot of confusion. And you get
Give us this reality check and breakdown for your salary when you started.
When I started?
Yeah, when you started at Microsoft.
Okay, yeah. Infosys not needed, definitely.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask only. Sorry, but yeah.
Yeah, so at Microsoft, I joined at job level 60.
Job level what?
60.
What's that?
So the junior most level is job level 59.
Oh, okay.
Then 60, 61 and so on.
Okay.
So I joined at job level 60.
Yeah.
And my CTC was 33.5 LPA.
Okay. You started at 33.5 LPA.
But don't divide it by 12, please.
No, that I'm not doing.
Yeah.
And so how much of it was your base pay?
Base pay was 20 lakhs.
Not bad.
Yeah. So base pay, cash component is 20 lakhs.
20 by 12 करना अब
वो भी मत करना because PF, insurance and whatnot.
Correct. True.
I can bet nobody can come to the exact figure if you haven't heard it before. So 20 is the base, and then 13 something is my annual stocks, like
annual stocks every year.
So the annual total for me was 33.5. I have never even looked at the figure that they mentioned because it's just delusion. They might have given me a very big figure considering my 4-year stocks. That would be beyond 50 something.
For sure.
Yeah. So if I want to say it in any podcast reel or anywhere, I can say that I started with 50 plus or something like that.
Yeah.
But not considering that, my annual CTC was 33.5. Just means that 20 was base.
20 was your base.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That gives a lot of insight and understanding. And can we ask you how much are you making right now?
Of course, you can ask, but Google policy is that I can't. So
got it. But I have a very nice understanding of how much he's making because I'm a career coach. I know how much he's making by now. Okay. You guys can figure out.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that off camera.
Sure.
Yeah. With that, Vivek, I think thank you so much firstly for actually, sharing these numbers because like you said, this is very helpful, right? And it matters.
Yeah.
The amount of money you can make, the scope what is the upper ceiling, what will your career trajectory look like, etc. It's extremely important. I want to know from you that you worked, as a freelancer in the UI UX space.
Yeah.
You also worked in, Infosys. You started your own venture as well. And then you've worked in companies like Microsoft and Google.
Yeah.
But in the same space. What was the difference of doing your own thing versus working at a startup versus working at an MNC in the same field?
Good question. My own startup, I can't consider that.
Blob design.
Yes.
Yeah.
So blob design is just a part of a bigger thing. Actually, At that time, I had to do 2 startups, which was Symbiotic. I wanted to make an app, a hyperlocal e-commerce app. I had a wonderful team with which I actually made that app. But it required a lot of investment, and I did not have that money coming from Infosys.
Yeah. That's why he went to Microsoft, now Google. And now to bus. I said stash is coming. Please continue.
So because I did not have money, I had to do freelancing and few other things. And that's why I created this entity of Blob Design, through which I used to do front-end web development, UX design, and whatever I could offer. And through those services, I used to earn money. And that money I used to pour directly in my hyperlocal e-commerce app. And with that, in a bootstrap way, things were moving. So with the money that I was getting with all these consultation services with Blob Design, I used to pour that money in
your startup, yeah.
Yeah, and because of that, I had to work as a UX designer too. I didn't want to at that time. And in my startup with the app, I was playing all the roles possible. I was the marketing person, salesperson, product manager, developer, and designer. So I used to do whatever I could to save money, and I used to hire folks to help me out, especially in the tech part. And it wasn't a purely UX design role, so can't be considered. That I was just doing for the sake of it. Like half of the times I was just listening to clients, and while I'm listening to clients, I knew that this exact template will fit this client and I can move on to the next project taking this money. So it wasn't a real UX design thing. It was just making the best out of that situation. After that, I joined Microsoft, which is a great product-based company. And at that time, I saw the significant difference between a service-based company like Infosys, where I was a UX designer, and now a product-based company where I'm a UX designer.
But how did the interview, I'm not asking you what the interview process was.
Okay.
What did it take for Microsoft to select you coming out of Infosys is what I want to understand. Like you said, from a service-based company to a product-based company. And was it something in your portfolio? Was it certain certifications that you had done, or just your practical hands-on? What is it that got you to clear the Microsoft interview is what I want to know.
Yeah. So while I was applying for a lot of companies at that time, because I had to shut my startup and I had to look for the next thing. At that time, I applied to Microsoft through their portal.
Yeah.
As of today, my application is still under consideration.
Okay.
And because I knew I wouldn't hear back from the portal, so I reached out to a manager on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I attached my portfolio. And in my portfolio at that time, I did not mention Infosys at all. My portfolio had only one project, which was my startup. And I had shown how from scratch I had
you built it from scratch. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a nice use case to actually show.
And it was great because a product company always wants designers who understand metrics, how your decisions will influence the users.
Yeah.
And I was doing that hands-on. So that gave me an edge. My portfolio stood out, and that person scheduled interview calls with me.
Which platform did you use to build your portfolio? Was it a particular tool, or was it just a Google Doc or a deck?
It was a PDF document.
Normal PDF document.
Yeah,
no Behance or...
No, I have never created a profile on Behance or Dribbble.
Not on Dribbble.
Not on Dribbble.
I was going to ask you, no Behance, no Dribbble.
No, I get this asked a lot of times.
You think is it important for designers to have a profile on Behance or Dribbble?
Yes, if you are not getting opportunities like I did, then you should definitely have a profile on Behance, Dribbble. You should have fancy websites. If you are applying for startups like Cred or any other big names in the industry, they value how you present your things with creativity and super cool animations of framer websites and how you have attached those things on Behance, Dribbble and whatnot. So all these things really matter if you're going into that space. But if you already have a shortlisted resume with FANG companies like Google, Microsoft, or at any other place, I have always used my plain PDF portfolio with 14 slides max, 1/4.
Oh, nice.
Not more than that.
Yeah.
I try to keep it crisp, and at any given time, my portfolio has maximum 2 projects, not more than that.
What is the rest of the portfolio about then?
So first project usually takes around 8 to 9 slides or 10 slides.
Oh.
And then rest of the slides I fill with a shorter project. That's all. I don't.
So only project, nothing else?
Nothing else. Like other things I've mentioned in my resume and cover letter if I have one.
Got it.
But in my portfolio, nothing more than that.
Oh, very insightful.
Yeah.
Got it. So you were talking about moving from Infosys to Microsoft,
Right.
from a service to a product-based company. And that's when you realized how different your role was, even though it was the same.
Exactly. Like the titles were same. At Infosys, my designation was lead UX designer. And when I joined Microsoft, it was UX designer.
Yeah.
So at Infosys, the pressure or the importance was given more towards convincing your client to get things done, making them happy of whatever they want to do. If you are put on a project, this is the first thing that everybody talks about. Are you keeping your client happy? They don't really care that much about the design decisions that you take on a product. As long as your client is appreciating you, you have done a wonderful project and you are the best UX designer out there. So most of the time it was about selling something. If you have come up with an idea that a design should be like this in a website or an app, you try to sell it to the client. And if they already have a bias, if they have already imagined what their app looks like, even if you give them the best data sets and whatnot, the reasons why you are choosing to go the other way, they will just deny it, and finally you'll have to say what the client is asking, because they are the god. And that was the way how we did business at Infosys. But when I joined Microsoft, nobody was above the product. Like what the product is saying, what the metrics is saying, what stats do we have. Even if I am the most junior person sitting in a room full of directors, VPs and whatnot, and if I have an opinion on the design which is backed by metrics or user survey, I will be heard, and that would be the final decision of that team because it's backed by user metrics. So that's like the top thing. If you are a UX designer and you have user metrics, nobody can defeat you.
Yeah, because I mean, data speaks, right? And data and certain points wherein it's bases the research that's been done, like you said, and if it's coming from a consumer research standpoint, you don't really have a say then, right?
Exactly. And there are times when you have to listen to the leadership because sometimes what data you have is at the feature level or a button level that people are not clicking this button.
Correct.
But leadership might have a different opinion or view entirely that this product will in future merge with this other product. So we need to make those decisions. And sometimes you don't have visibility to that fact. And only in those cases is you have to let go of your concept or decision and hang on to what they are saying because there's a bigger picture out there. But if there's no such grand plan in the background, then whatever you say with the data is the final thing and that should go into the product. That's how people work at the product companies.
Lovely. That's a great insight, and I think good to know that user metrics overpass everything. At least in a UI UX designer's life. Since we were talking about the change and the difference between different kinds of firms that you worked at, any stark difference in terms of work culture, team collaborative spirit, or just the way companies function, and obviously product-wise, that you see between Microsoft and Google?
Oh, that's a tough one. I thought you will compare Infosys and Microsoft and then I'll have a billion points to say.
No. Microsoft and Google.
Microsoft and Google, they are like same in a lot of sense.
Tell me what are the things that are similar?
Okay.
What are a few things that are different?
Work-life balance is pretty similar.
Okay.
The benefits are similar. Their prestige.
Could you tell us a little bit about what you mean by benefits and what kind of benefits?
Benefits, apart from the monetary benefits of stocks and other things, we get a lot of swags, free food, and events, great vacations, office outings.
Lovely.
And quarterly budgets for fun activities and whatnot. One thing, if I can say, in Microsoft, the food was not actually 100% free. So the concept was you have to have this app hunger box, and daily you receive a credit of 200 rupees in that app.
Okay.
And then you use that to buy food. If you can accommodate your 2 or 3 meals in that, wonderful. If not,
200 रुपए में कैसे आएंगे 3 meal?
so the thali, what it used to cost around
Was it a
110.
subsidized
Yeah,
cost?
110.
Okay.
So if you really want to, you might be able to accommodate it, but
Yeah.
if you go beyond that, then you pay and do things like that.
Got it.
But at
Google is
there is no app.
Yeah.
You just go wherever you want to. You just pick a plate and you have your food.
And I know that the variety is very less.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm being sarcastic, but yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Lovely.
So that was part of the benefit.
Yeah.
So other than that, food, it's pretty much the same. The vacations, the things that they do. Hey,
Do you guys get any allowances or something?
allowance for?
Anything, I don't know. Maybe your house rent allowances.
Yeah, there are many programs. In fact, so many programs that I don't even know of. Car leasing program, house pay this, house pay that, and
Yeah, बहुत कुछ
all those
होगा.
things. There are many things that I haven't even looked into.
Got it.
In my orientation of Microsoft, they just spoke about it in points, but I still couldn't get all of it. Like, orientations are pretty boring at times, even though they are about the benefits, but still. Yeah. Then the similarities are these, and if I talk about the difference, so the differences, and mostly the difference I have felt is because of the team that I have been in. So I think that you can't perceive the entire company level thing ever.
Just by your individual experience, because in the same company, 2 different teams, and because of the members, will have 2 entirely different experiences.
Exactly. And these are
I'm so glad you agree.
They are such huge companies that you can't at any level imagine what the entire
one
thing
person though cannot help you, or 2-3 people's good reviews cannot help you judge that the entire company culture is like this or everything is good.
Exactly.
There is one person suffering and cussing the same company, and one person is having a gala time.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
2 lakh, 3 lakh, 5 lakh employees, it's huge.
Yeah. So again, coming from the point of view of the teams that I had interacted with, and it's my personal experience, my personal opinion with my personal biases. So all sorts of disclaimer that there is.
Yeah, you don't need to give more disclaimer. It's okay.
Okay, so with that, I felt that Microsoft was a bit more process oriented. Like if you come across a blocker, if you want something that is way beyond this, then you have to put all sorts of requests. You have to wait for the requests to be approved. Even if it is a case in a UX design that I made a special icon designed from a separate team. So basically we don't make our own icons in an app or anything. We decide what icon should be there, but we are not allowed to make it. Special storytelling team or graphic designers are hired for that specific purpose.
Okay.
So what we can do is we can put a request to them that, hey, I need this exact icon for this business use case. So a simple thing like this, or a complex thing like putting a new page in a product, or just going out of the box, trying new things. For that, you had to follow the process. There was a chain of authority, some protocols. You have to email these people, wait to hear back, then get the final approval. Things were a lot more process-oriented.
Driven.
But at Google, I feel it is more human. Like if I want to get something done, I will reach out to that person directly, either on chat or email them.
Yeah.
And things get rolling the same day.
Yeah.
And I get whatever I want within a day or 2. It's pretty fast, and I felt more understood here in terms of like if I am trying to break the chain of command, or if I am trying to get something out of the box at Microsoft, I'll have to do a bit more explanation, because this process prevents you from doing this. This process prevents you from doing this. There are processes, of course, at Google for security reasons, but because I'm directly interacting with humans on chat or call and explaining them my needs, it just happens so efficiently and so fast. I really like that environment. And that's like the biggest difference that I have felt personally. Other than that, people just keep hopping from Microsoft, Google, Meta, all these companies from here and there.
Yeah.
They feel similar culture benefits. If something has this more, then something has this more. So every other thing is pretty similar there.
Got it. Very interesting. Thanks for sharing that actually. And I think it makes a lot of sense, right? I did think that a lot of things would be similar when it comes to Microsoft or Google, but that one difference makes a lot of sense. Again, I think with that, I have a last few questions for you, two to be precise, Vivek. I want to move on to also understand that, let's say, somebody has decided now and has been in the field and industry for a while now, and is working at these top tech companies as a UI UX designer. And let's say they decide to switch to a different field, but they don't want to move too away from what they've been doing as a UI UX designer.
Yeah.
What's the next closest thing that could come to it? The reason I'm asking again is I promote a lot of career fluidity, and I know after a particular point of time, someone may just want to explore as well and come back to it later. You never know.
Yeah.
What comes the closest to the core skill set of UI UX design, wherein you'll still have to build on a newer skill set and upskill yourself, but you could utilize and leverage all the skills you've built as a UI UX designer in a different field, if there is one?
That is a great question. And I know a few cases where people have shifted from UX design to something else.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to explore something different. The closest one, but of course, given that you would like to get into coding, is front-end development.
Is front-end development?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you would still be dealing with UI. You just won't be the main brain behind it. Like you won't be taking most of the decisions, but you will still be giving your input. You would be very closely working with UX designers. Your feedback would be very valuable. And you would be coding or developing the interfaces that has been given to you.
Correct.
And the domain name or the designation of UX engineer is precisely that.
Right.
Like the interviews and the shortlisting happens on the basis of, do you understand UX design and you can code? Then you can be a UX engineer. And UX engineers sometimes get paid more than UX designers. They are the unicorns who merge both the worlds, people who can code and people who can understand UX. Those are the UX engineers.
Lovely. This is very interesting.
Yeah, those are the unicorns.
They are the unicorns. Great.
Yeah.
Amazing. Perfect. Okay. And with that, one last question for you, Vivek, which I think would be super insightful and useful for, my audience. So these are all folks who are aspiring to explore different career paths, or most of the folks who are aspiring to get into UI UX designer are intrigued by the field. They'll probably tune into the episode is what I'm assuming. Basis your experience of being in the industry for more than at least 3.5 years now, right? Almost 5 years now. Almost 5 years now. Tell me the top 3 things that you've learned as lessons or maybe an advice from a mentor, something that you've just built out as a process for yourself that would be super useful for somebody who wants to build a successful career as a UI UX designer in India.
Great question. The topmost advice that I have in this list is be rigid with your goal, but flexible with your plan. If you keep hopping from startups, MNCs, service-based or product companies, you will see different dimensions of what UX design is. Everybody defines them differently. You will get to work in a different environment, and there would be different expectations out of you. So if your goal is very rigid, that you want to make the best product for the user, which also satisfies the business need, then you will know where to head to. Like that's your compass. That's the North Star where you want to go to. And the plan, the process, that would be flexible depending on the tools that you are provided, the processes that your company follows, or how they encourage you to make those decisions.
Correct.
For example, even though I was a UX designer, but in a company, I can't name it, I was given Microsoft PowerPoint to make UIs. So we did not have Figma license at that time, and I had to make UIs on PPT. So tools and all these things will change. We did not have access to users at times, and we had to do our own internal focus group kind of discussion. So these things will keep on changing if you are learning and you are evolving and you are hopping from one of the other service-based or product-based or startups. It'll happen. You just have to know what your end goal is, like making the best product for the users that satisfies the business. And then the process and the plan that will keep changing. Don't be very rigid about that part. So that's the first advice. Second advice is the documentation process. I know so many great designers who don't do it, and because of that, they get into trouble in their life, not just at office, but beyond office as well. Like if you don't have a documented project, how it affects you personally is whenever you decide to make a switch to a different company, You'll have to start your portfolio again.
Again, from scratch.
You don't have any documented proof.
True.
Any process that you had followed, any user stats that you had gone through, the number of explorations that you did. And essentially, you don't have anything to put into your portfolio. And then that is a major setback. And then if you have to really put your time into making one project again so that you can switch, by then most of the opportunities would have already passed.
100%.
So that's a hit on your personal level. And at the office level, even if you are making the best UIs out there which are delivering results, but the process is not documented, people have difficulty in having the appraisal or the promotion conversation.
Because there's no proof of work then, in a way.
Yeah, like I can say that as part of this project, this project is the star project of this quarter or this year. But what did I do? What was my contribution? Like, did I just move one button? Did I just change the color of a button?
Correct.
So if you miss on the documentation part, there's nothing to back you up. And this essentially becomes a lot of reason for not agreeing with your manager, having all sorts of conflicts. And then ultimately, you have to look for a different job, which you can't because you did not document to make a portfolio.
Correct. Yeah. So it's just a loophole where jahan se shuru karoge, you'll be back there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the third point, which applies to few of the folks, is upskilling. So this I have seen in product companies, like the FANG companies. When people reach here, some of them get too comfortable that I have already done my part, I have learned, I have gotten this degree, I know what to do, I know how to do UX design, I document my things, so I'm just sorted. And then they comfortably take on projects and deliver how they have been delivering all this while. But the landscape is changing. AI has already been introduced. There are so many new ways of what UX design is, how they are defined. There are areas where UX design is not just about visual interfaces anymore. Now there are conversational interfaces. There's VR, there's AR, and there's new ways to even design for the conventional screens.
Correct.
And if you're not upskilling yourself with all these information tools and how things are changing, then
you'll become redundant.
Irrelevant in not so near future. Like, it would be very sad coming to a big company achieving so much and then being that part who lost their job because of AI or the new transformations.
So makes a lot of sense. Love them. I think all the three advices are very, very practical, very focused to what a UI UX designer should focus on basis your experiences and what you have seen. And I think I've had a great time. There's so much I've learned about this industry and, the field. Insider insights from the person who is in the industry and doing things, even for a career coach like me, are super important, right? There's so much I got to learn, the nuances, the details. So I'm pretty sure everybody who's tuned in till this point would have found the episode really valuable. I'd just suggest that do check out the description for all the resources which we'll link in. We'll also be linking in all of Vivek's social media handles. So definitely follow him, check his social media handles, and don't just tune into the podcast to listen to what we have said. I always say this in every episode. Practically apply everything that the guests have told you to do and execute it. Because if you don't execute what you've heard from a podcast, it's sheer listening, right? So only then will it make sense and an impact in your life. But thank you so much, Vivek, once again. Had a great time. I hope you enjoyed being on the podcast as well. And yeah, I think they're going to find it very, very helpful for sure.
Thank you so much for having me here. And it was a wonderful experience, like having this podcast, and the narration helped me to think about a lot of things. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
No, my pleasure. And I think that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for everyone who is tuned in. And I'll see you in the next one. But before you leave, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the Dhairya Decodes channel. I'll see you in the next one.